Yeah. So we can directly call with a static import. That's the difference between static import and normal import. See, we did a normal import here. And everywhere, a static members before we are calling with a class name. So that you don't need to do here if you do a static import, right? So static import is, it will give you a provision to you to call the static members directly. So without prefixing the class name. So that's the difference between static import and normal import. If you use a normal import, you must do class name dot static members. If you do a static import, you can directly call the static members with that name. So that's a simple. Okay. So that's all about static members. And let's go now. So non-static theory part. So we'll finish that and then we'll go for the coding tomorrow. Okay. So any questions on the static member? Please practice all these 4 scenarios so that it will give you a lot of confidence to you, because same scenarios will come throughout our entire course, not only in Java. Mostly you will get in the Selenium. So all these scenarios. So keep this in mind, and you can do that. Okay, so after see that I have given static import also here. Please go through that. It's a basically nicely created this document. So now non-static methods. So I have mentioned we have methods 2 types: static methods, non-static methods. Static methods we have seen. So let's see now non-static methods. So non-static, how can you identify that is a non-static method or a static method? If a method doesn't contain the static keyword, right? In the method prototype line. If you don't have that static keyword, obviously it is a non-static method. So non-static method syntax is again similar: access modifier, return type, method name. So parenthesis, it can be with the parameters, without parameters, and body you can write. That's the non-static method syntax. So again, non-static method also we can write it 4 ways. So with the parameters, with void, without parameters, both you can write. So that's the first one, parameterized instance method. So non-static method, another name is instance method. Why it is an instance method? Instantly the memory allocates at runtime. That's why it got a name, instance method. So non-static method, another thing. And if you see here, the syntax parameterized method with void. So you have to write like this: access modifier. You know what are the access modifiers, right? We have a private, public, protected, default. So any one of them you can use what permission you want to give. Then void, write a void, because that means this method is not going to return any value. That's the meaning of void. Then method name. So parenthesis. So the parameter, how to write parameter? First data type you have to write parameter value, comma. So data type parameter 2, comma, data type parameter 3, and so on. How many parameters you want, you can define all the parameters. So then method body, and write a logic inside the method body. So the simple example: public void set emp name, string name, only one parameter I want for this method. So I took first data type of this parameter and then method body. So body inside you can define. So body inside you can define the. So what are the logic you want to implement for this method? How to get the EMP, how to set the EMP name. Next, non-parameterized instance method. If a method doesn't contain any parameters, that means 0 parameters, then that is called non-parameterized instance method. So access modifier, void, method name, so no parameters here. So that's the non-parameterized instance method. And method body, so you can write whatever the logic you want, how you want to define. So defining a method is done in the body. So this is a method definition you are giving. So another two types of methods is without void. You can define a method without void. So how to define the method without void? Access modifier. So data type. I already told you data types. We have a primitive and non-primitive data types, right? So data type means here in our Selenium, mostly we are going to use non-primitive data types. Very rare case you will use primitive data types. So all the methods in Selenium, they will return type will be an interface or a class object, so such kind of things mostly, or a string type. So this is the return type of method. So that's why I'm saying data type means don't think it is only Boolean, integer, float, character. No. So your method can return any type of data. It can be an interface type, it can be a class type object, it can be an array, it can be a map, it can be any kind of data type it can return. So that's important here. And see in the body you will get extra here return keyword. You have to write a return keyword because this method is returning after all your calculation. The method is returning a value. So that value of type is this data type. So that's the how to create a return type methods. So see this return keyword won't be there for the void methods. That's a change. So here data type place you are putting void here, but here no void keyword. If you understand the void keyword definition, so we already discussed it twice, many times also. So in the beginning classes and even functions time, I explained this, and many other cases also I explained what is mean by void. And so the method you can create with the parameters without void. So access modifier, data type, method name, and parameters. You're adding parameter 1, comma, parameter 2, and so on. How many you want, you can add. So then write the logic and return this logic output. So this logic output is this data type value. So this is all the 4 type of non-static methods. So 2 with void, 2 without void. 2 with void, 2 without void. Okay. Now, so we have now how to execute. Okay, you created the methods. You created a 4 type of methods and you created a non-static variables in the class. How can you call them in the same class, or how can you call them in another class? How can you call them in another package class? So for a non-static case, the single concept, that is, if you want to access any non-static member or method or variable, the single concept is you need to create an object for the class. So for particular class, non-static variables, non-static method, if you want to call, the first thing you need to do is you need to create an object for the class. So here is the question. How can you access or execute non-static members under main method or any other static method is just create object for that class. Not only here, any other method. So other class non-static members, if you want to call, you need to create that object reference. First, you have to create object, then that object reference dot all the non-static members you can call one by one. So how to create object for a class? By just using a new keyword. A new keyword will create object for the class. So first one is, so local variable syntax in creating the object. So class name. So class is a one data type, right? It's a non-primitive data type. And reference of object equal to, so assignment operator. This is an assignment operator. So new class name parenthesis. So you need to understand this entire line. See that class is a data type. That means this variable reference object type is same class type or parent class type. And assignment operator. So this entire thing, new class name parenthesis, this is an object. That object. So object means what? I told you already, it will create a memory in the heap area at runtime. So it creates a memory means it occupies some memory. So that object has some value, integer value. That integer value will go and store here in this reference variable. So understand the assignment operator. Assignment operator, obviously, so this right side is some value will be there. That's the meaning of assignment operator. When you're assigning the right side value to this variable means, okay, this is the value. So that value you're copying into that variable. That's you're assigning to that variable, a value. So this is the local variable concept. That means where you created, in that function only you can use this. But if you want to make it a global, I want to use this reference object in all the methods, then you have to make this, global variable. Then that reference variable, you can assign this object value. So let me explain once again, one by one, part by part, word by word, understand here. Okay. So what is a reference variable? So any variable which points to the object. So that is called reference variable. What holds this reference variable? The address of the object. So what is stored in this reference variable? The address of this object. So this object has some address in the memory, right? That is an integer number. That integer number will store in this reference variable. That's the meaning of a reference variable means. So class name is a non-primitive data type. And this is a variable name. That means data type, variable name equal to value. So that means this is a local variable syntax, right? Is this a local variable syntax or not? So data type, variable name equal to value. So that means this is the local object, local reference object. So assignment operator, you know what it will do? It will copy the right side value to left side variable. The new keyword is actually creating object for the class. And this entire thing is called object. And only this class name parenthesis is called a default constructor. Because if you don't have any value here, it's a default constructor. So here itself, you can create a parameter value you can pass. That means a constructor, two types. Default constructor, parameterized constructor. Default constructor and parameterized constructor. So two types. So that is the how you can use these constructors in the object line. So constructor is called in the object line automatically. That's a whole this line. And how to call any non-static member? Just object reference dot non-static method. How to call non-static variable? Object reference dot non-static variable without object reference, you cannot call non-static variables or non-static methods. First, you have to create object. The object creation is, this is the syntax. So you make this variable global variable or local variable. It's up to you. So where you want to use this reference? So globally in all the methods you want to use, declare global variable. A global variable means I already told static or non-static, right? So you can define that. The reference of object globally also. Is it clear? Okay. Now, anonymous object. What is mean by anonymous object? So this one is with reference, right? You have a reference for this object. The right side one is object. A new class name parenthesis is the object. That object has a reference. But an object which doesn't have any reference, that is called anonymous object. Like this, just object. That's it. That is called anonymous object. So new class name dot non-static method. New class name dot non-static method. So can you tell me how many objects we are creating here? How many objects we are creating there?
One only.
No. See, you need to remember.
Yeah, we have
new.
Mhm.
It's a new object.
Yeah.
Every time you call new, it's going to create a new object. So always it's a two objects here. This is the one object, that object dot non-static method. Again, one more object you are creating. And this memory address is different and this memory address is different. Both are two different objects. So they occupy a different memory in the heap area. So it's not same. Both. So this address and this address is different. So is it clear for everyone? Whenever you use a new keyword, that means it's creating a new object. That means new memory will be allocated in the heap area. So you can create n number of instances. That means n number of objects. So to store the data. So it can be based on your requirement. You can store. So for the same variables, a different data by creating a multiple objects. So basically in the object-oriented concepts, so class is just a template. And you can create a multiple objects for the same class. And you can store a different data in each object for the same variables and same methods. So that's this object-oriented concepts. So we'll discuss after basics of one more topic we have, right? That is control structures. After that, we can start the OOPS concepts. But till that, so just understand how to create objects and how to call the methods. And we'll see tomorrow this. First, we'll create the. So again, here also you have scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, all 3 scenarios. But the concept is first you have to create object. But make sure in the class you have a non-static variables, non-static methods. Then you can create object. Without having a non-static members, non-static methods, you should not create object, no use. Right? So if that class doesn't have any non-static members, you should not create object. These are all static members. Means I told you already how to call static members. You have to use that process. If you have a non-static members, this is the process we are going to discuss tomorrow's class. Yeah, thank you. So any questions? Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.